Okay, so when you picture a samurai, what's the first thing that pops in your head? Probably a fearless warrior, right? Totally loyal, defined by that gleaming sword and an unbreakable code of honor. But what if I told you their greatest weapon wasn't the steel in their hand at all, but something, well, something much deeper? Let's get into it. Just take a look at this quote from Bokuden, a legendary swordsman. The conquering enemy without fighting school. I mean, that sounds like a total contradiction, doesn't it? How can a master of combat build his whole philosophy around not fighting? Well, there's a pretty famous story that gives us a major clue. So picture this. Bokuden is on a ferry, and he's just dressed like a simple monk. Then this loud, arrogant samurai gets on and starts bragging to anyone who will listen about how amazing he is, challenging everybody. Bokuden, kind of tired of the guy's bragging, calmly says that his own school is all about winning without fighting. Of course, the bragger just scoffs and demands a duel. Bokuden agrees, but he says they have to go to a nearby island to avoid hurting the other passengers. The second they get to the shore, the arrogant samurai leaps out, sword drawn, totally ready to go. But Bokuden, he just grabs an oar, pushes the boat right back into the water, and starts rowing away, leaving the fuming challengers stranded. As he rows off, he yells, "This is the secret art of the conquering enemy without fighting school." Now that is just a masterclass in strategy, isn't it? But it's about way more than just being clever. It points to a deep, internal kind of power. So what was it? What was the secret weapon that let a master like Bokuden have such complete control over himself and the entire situation? The answer wasn't some secret fighting technique. No, it was a profound spiritual discipline that pretty much became the source code for the entire samurai mindset, Zen Buddhism. And this wasn't about religion in the way we might think of it. It was really a form of intense mental and spiritual training. And this is where Zen is really different from a lot of other spiritual paths. You see, while many traditions are based on studying holy books and scriptures, Zen is all about direct personal experience. It argues that truth isn't something you just read about, it's something you have to go out and discover for yourself in the world. There's this great story about a Zen master named Hyun Sha. He was just about to give a big sermon when he heard a swallow singing outside. He just turned to his students and said, "Listen, that small bird preaches the essential doctrine." And then he went back to his room. The whole sermon was right there, in the bird's song, in the direct experience of that single moment, not in some long, complicated speech. So if Zen isn't about memorizing texts or complex rituals, then what is it really about? Well, at its very core, it's an investigation into one huge question. What is the true nature of a human being? And its answer is pretty radical. For centuries, philosophers have debated this. Are we born fundamentally good, or are we born evil? The source material actually walks us through how different schools of thought, especially in Confucianism, really tried to wrestle with this exact problem. And you see this fascinating progression of ideas. First, you have the theory that we're all naturally good. Then, the complete opposite, we're naturally bad. Then the compromise. Okay, maybe we're a mix of both. Then another idea. We just start as a blank slate, neither good nor bad. But Zen comes in with a fifth, totally different answer. Man is Buddha-natured. So what on earth is Buddha nature? Well, it's described as this universal, enlightened potential that exists inside of every single one of us. It's not good or bad in the normal sense. Think of it more like the common source from which both good and bad actions can spring. A so-called bad person isn't fundamentally different from a good person. They're just expressing that shared potential in a much narrower, more limited way. I love how the source puts it. The bad are the good in the egg. It's a really beautiful idea, right? That this enlightened nature, this Buddha nature, is already inside all of us. But that brings up a huge question. How do we actually access it? How do you wake it up? And this leads us to the central goal of Zen practice, enlightenment. Now, Zen teaches that this awakening isn't something you can figure out just by thinking really, really hard. It's not an intellectual puzzle you solve. It's a sudden, direct insight that goes completely beyond words. And there's no better story to illustrate this than the one about a monk named Rinzai. So Rinzai is this really earnest student, and he's told to go ask his master, Obak, a simple question. What is the essence of Buddhism? So he goes. He asks, and before he can even finish his sentence, whack! The master slaps him. Confused, he's told to try again. He does. He gets slapped again. He tries a third time, and, you guessed it, he gets slapped a third time.
So, totally frustrated, Rinzai is ready to quit. He goes to another master, tells him the story, and this new master scolds him, saying Obak had been incredibly kind to him. And in that moment of pure shock, expecting sympathy and getting a reprimand instead, it all just clicks. The meaning of the slaps suddenly dawns on him, not as an answer he could write down, but as a direct experience. He finally gets it. The essence wasn't something anyone could give him with words.
This story really shows us that enlightenment isn't some theory you learn from a book. It's an awakening to the Buddha nature that's already inside of you. Like the source says, it's something beyond description and analysis. You just have to experience it.
Okay, so how does all of this circle back to the samurai? This deep philosophy wasn't just some abstract idea, it was a practical training manual for life and death situations. And honestly, it's just as relevant for us today.
The whole training basically breaks down into this 3-step process for achieving total self-mastery. First, you become the master of external things, so you're not controlled by chasing wealth or pleasure. Next, you become the master of your body, controlling pain, fear, and impulse. And finally, and this is the highest step, you become the absolute master of your own mind, your anger, your worry, all of your illusions. And that was the real lesson, the true strength of the samurai. The real source of Bokuden's strange power. It wasn't just about mastering the sword. It was about the complete and total mastery of their own inner world. The ultimate battle was always, always fought within. So that kind of leaves us with one final, pretty provocative thought. If our own life is a kind of battlefield filled with its own challenges, conflicts, and desires, who or what is the master of your mind?